Okay. Um, our first guest probably needs no introduction. We have Alan Kolchinsky, who is the founder and executive director of Independent Support Services. Alan will introduce our topic this evening and share his thoughts and his comments. So Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
I would also like to welcome everybody to Independent Support Services Parent Council meeting, third quarter, with a topic of housing. There is great interest in this topic, as evidenced by the large number of attendees. We are honored to have Trish Calandra as our guest speaker tonight. Trish is a master housing navigator, a support broker, and a parent, and she's one of us. The topic of housing is one that is on the radar screen of not only you, but others in government and the private sector. There is momentum in housing that really, in my 18 years with this agency, I've not seen this before. State government and OPW are providing funding and tax credits to developers who are willing to build affordable housing and have 20% of the units set aside for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So this is really a great opportunity. There are a number of projects that have already been built all around the state, and ISS is pursuing securing a developer partner and hopefully building a project of our own. So hopefully we could not get into the housing business, but be a partner with the developer, and then we would have interest in those 20% apartments and be able to do some of the sustainability things that we talked about in our research project. And going forward, these are some of the things that we want to do to actually support people whose parents are aging and possibly not available. So within OPWDD and the Center for Medicaid Services, there really is a shift away from capital funding for congregate settings. There still is funding. Congregate settings are not going to go away. They are necessary for the people who think that's their best option. But there is a movement and greater attention to developing housing opportunities in our communities. We will be hopeful that this will make housing in the community more available and affordable. OPW has had the great fortune recently of having a housing innovator, John Malpe, who has taken his concern for housing for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to a level that has not been seen in our field in my experience. I had sent everyone this great training opportunity that Tricia probably mentioned again. It's an hour a day or an hour a week for 9 weeks. It will really give you a lot of useful information and resources. So even if you can't attend all 9 sessions, I would suggest you drop in and try to listen to as many sessions as possible. Okay, so I'd like to turn it over now to our guest speaker, Trish Calandra. Trish, please.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yep.
I also put in the chat box that link to those sessions that Alan referred to. It is a great opportunity. They are being recorded. You don't necessarily have to be there at the meeting time. It is being recorded and available to people who sign up to be able to review it later at your own leisure. So definitely take advantage of that. And I think Liz just has to share the screen so that I can pull up the PowerPoint. I'm not sure if
you're on as host, Trish, so you can share your screen.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Tell me if you need help. I can help you with that. You're good.
And there we go. Get big. You guys don't need to see all my. Oh, don't know what happened. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. And there we go. Can you see the screen, everybody?
No, it's not.
No.
Oh. Okay. Showing on mine now. Hold on. Sorry,
If
guys.
you want, I can take over, Trish. I can do it for you.
I just have a spinning wheel.
All right, 1 second. Let me see if I can help you out. All right, I can do this now. Let me take you off. And you can let me know when you need the screen changed. Okay, hopefully that's on now. 1 second. All right.
Here we
Can
go.
everybody see that?
Okay.
All right, how do I?
Just go onto you're on Bluetooth.
All right. Is the screen available? Can you see it?
Yep, I see it. I don't know. Can you all see it?
Everybody
Yes, I
the
see it.
PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. I'm going to take myself off that thing.
You're just
So,
gonna need to let me know, Trish, when you want me to change it for you.
perfect. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
again, thank you for having me tonight. And some of you may know me as a broker, or some of you may know me as a housing navigator. Most of you know me as Joey and Jenna's mom. So this is actually, they are the reason that I started this housing journey and how it all began. And now I definitely want to help others to try and figure out the housing and sustainability, and maybe some of the answers to what happens when we are gone. A running joke with all my kids' staff is, I tell them all the time, every day, I'm planning for my demise. So that's why we do what we do. And I just also, I know it's a hot topic for housing, and there are some folks who already are accessing housing subsidies who are part of this call. I just wanted to, sort of give you the back history there, that housing subsidy is not really new guidance. It's just more now that the subsidies are being enforced more. So basically, this has always been in place, but it's a matter of how we now have to show the proof as to why the deductions that we were providing to the fiscal intermediaries and to OPWDD. Can you guys, somebody is talking? Hello? So just to, just to reiterate that, we all have to have a little more patience while we figure out and learn how to best get through this learning curve. And there is going to be new guidance coming. It's up, but it's not fully new to what is going to occur. So it's just definitely more now being enforced to provide just the proof that everything is a deduction or a real expense to the budget, and based on income levels that are now have to be also approved. You've all gotten your letter to show your Social Security disability letters and all that good stuff. So just patience while we all navigate through, and some of this discussion will also be hopefully helpful to figuring out how to best support that. So Liz, if you don't mind, next slide. So why are we in a housing crisis, or what do we have to do for planning? Obviously the group model is no longer sustainable for everyone. And for some folks who are in group homes now, it's actually not even an appropriate placement. So we need to look at the cost and support models that we have in place, and maybe how we need to advocate for some changes. So the regulations are requiring change and accountability for all the programs, and that's why we refer to the housing documents and the criteria that OPWDD has put in place for us. Hold on, I'm just going to stop my stopwatch. There are people out there that are in group homes that are actually feel more isolated or lonely and they're living with 5 to 10 people. We need a more person-centered approach. How do we plan at school age and then after that, right? So understanding supports, I hear a lot of times they're not ready, you need 24/7. So what we need to do is do the work in identifying functional needs and planning. We need more advocacy. That is a big one. We need to create more non-certified housing, and we need to advocate as to why we need the help. As I always say, you'll hear me give a lot of presentations, and I say that when we thought of self-direction, we thought of it from A to C and not A to Z. So now we have to work on some advocacy. How do we get to Z? So what type of housing works best for your loved ones and the people you support? And who do we want to work with to make it affordable and sustainable? And how do we look to create more of those opportunities? Liz, next slide. So where do we start? It's all about the skill building and the life plans, right? So why is it important to write about independent living within the life plan? It's crucial because that is the document they're all referring back to now. So we need to make a skill assessment. So I always tell people, do a day in the life for the person. What do they do when they wake up? What do they do during the day? What is their sleep time? Get input from your entire circle of support. A lot of individuals go out during the day and they come home and we just sort of get some pictures maybe during the day, some text messages, but what are they really doing? And then as parents, what are we doing within that time when they're home to do all the support needs? Review that list and prioritize the importance of all those skills so we don't overwhelm the person, the staff, and the circle. Review the life plan with the circle of support, the care manager. And if you need, add the POMs that you all agree are needed. I think I go to every life plan meeting and I say, what are you working on, or what is the team doing that we're not capturing within this staff action plan or this life plan that you really are doing day to day? So these are all important things to capture. And sometimes we need those people that are working with our family members to give us that information too. Assumptions sometimes get made and we really want to involve everybody within the team. Then you make those SAP and assign all those goals to make sure you're working on those things and everybody knows your intention. Utilize your current staff and your family to build on the skills if they're already living outside of the home. So pretend that you are roommates together and start thinking of what it would look like and what you need to work on if they were living outside the home while they're in the home. You definitely need to complete a person-centered housing plan with a housing navigator or a broker who's experienced in non-certified housing, and they will build on your solutions within the next slides. So some of the things I'm going to talk about, I'm not giving you the solutions, I'm giving you the thought process, but it's a whole nother conversation once you get past the problem, what the solutions are, right? So there are solutions and there are strategies that you can work on. And how can you fit technology in and assist it in reducing the costs? There's lots of mainstream technology. Alexa, tell me when it's 8 o'clock. And you program these things to go off to remind people for different things that go on in life. When we talk about pretend you're living outside the home, mom, if you are the person who is saying, it's 8 o'clock, you need to take your pills, start working on using some technology to alleviate from that and build on the independence. It's not just a matter of staffing and reducing costs, but it's also in the ability to build the ability to do it on their own. Next slide, please. Skill building again, medication management and alerts. How are medications and medical appointments handled? Are there medical alerts to be aware of? Seizures, hearing, eyesight, allergies, immune system, choking hazards. Do you have CDPAP services? If you do have CDPAP services, it's a great way to take your current DSPs and staff and also have them become your CDPAP workers so that you have a continuum, because as DSPs, they're not allowed to discuss medication, remind people to take medications or make medical appointments. Leisure skills and downtime, really important. How do you keep yourself busy? Are there any barriers? Do you like to be outside? Is the opportunity available to be outside when you're living in your own place? What do you do when you're outside? Some people just want to be in a hammock and swing. Some people just like to sit outside. I know my son does. It's very important for him to be able to sit outside and just relax and listen to his earbuds. So his idea of a good place to live needed to have outside activities. What do you do when you're inside? Do you do gaming? Do you do movies? Do you watch TV? You do puzzles? Lots and lots of things. So how can you expand on those things to be busy to reduce boredom and possibly those behaviors that come from boredom, right? So you need a plan in place, you know, scheduling and things that you could do to make sure that their time is occupied. I think COVID, if anything, taught us all how to be better at finding these things and learning how to occupy everybody's time. So when we talk about cleaning and maintenance and household obligations, how is homekeeping handled? What cleaning skills are you good at? Where do you need assistance? Is there a need for a cleaning service? Is there laundry? What are the challenges with laundry? You know, do you get to the dryer and then don't follow through and fold and put it away, or do you hang it up? Who's handling food and supplies for shopping, budgeting and bill paying? Have you thought of a daily spending limit? Is your person carrying cash or a debit card with alerts set? You can do alerts. My kids have it in there, $25. If they do any charges over that, I get a text message. So this way I know what they're doing and if they're going over budget and paying attention. And then I also have a staff person who's on that same text messaging. This way, somebody is also responsible outside of me. Who's paying the bills and submitting for reimbursements? Are you thinking of those things through, you know, staffing support, or some of you DSPs, if they have downtime when they're with your person and they happen to be maybe, you know, in the house and they're watching a movie and there's the time to do some of that work for you, for this person as a support. Next slide, please. So when we look at the life plan, you need good elements in the life plan. The narrative should be a thorough overview of the person, how far they've come, their achievements, their hopes, their dreams for the future. What are their health needs? Were there any concerns in the past of specific behaviors that you would want people to be aware of? What are the services and supports they'll be need to live independently? Anyone picking up that document should know if they live independently or working and continuing to work on living independently. So in section 2, that's what drives all the goals and what you want the staff to work on. Anything you feel the individual needs to gain skills should be captured and written here. The broker will then write a staff action plan from those goals listed here. The need to capture what the family support and what the family works on, or your natural supports, is really an important and necessary thing. They're listed as natural supports. Sometimes you'll hear the team say, oh, you don't have to list the natural supports, or you don't need to list some of these things, but you really do. Because if you're assisting with the ADLs and you're assisting in any part of this, in the cooking, the cleaning, medication management, whatever, it should be documented there. First, it builds the case for CDPAP, but it also shows the team that you are a viable part of the team, and that you are the person who can help and assist, train the staff as well. So self-direction, also when we talk about self-direction and the staff, we are teaching and attaining skills. When we talk CDPAP, I always say it's a do for service, and the skills that the individuals cannot do for themselves. So, you know, and sometimes the parents are actually the CDPAP workers as well. And again, very important to list what you do as a support to the person you love, so that you are building the case for all the supports that you need, and where in the person's life you're going to have to show, you know, what happens when I'm gone, I do all these things. Next slide. So for section 3, this is where the safeguards are to keep the person safe and the supports needed are addressed. Medication management, as we all know, cannot be assigned to ComHep staff, but it should be reflected as a natural support or independent. As an example, if you have someone that wanders or has specific behaviors, or camera systems are used, it should be written and addressed here. Personally, and I've used this on a couple of plans that I support, if the person has a camera system Within the home, you want to put it under special consideration so that everyone is aware when you're reviewing the life plan and the staff action plan with the family and the supports that they, the DSPs, that they also know that the cameras are there and what the role of that camera is. So for us, it's overnight support because we don't use DSPs or community rehabilitation staff. So we do a cloud-based system. I have a paid neighbor and myself who are on that cloud-based system. So if somebody gets up, we're aware that they're up and maybe wandering around the house or going to the bathroom. The beauty is it does a clip of the moment that's happening, and then you can review it without interference to see if it's something that you need to maybe jump in and intervene somehow, whether it's a call or needing to go over, calling the paid neighbor and saying, you know, I saw this and maybe you need to check on it. Or it's just that the person for independence, you know, you want to give them the independence that, of course, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just going to the bathroom, not everybody's, you know, jumping and running to the house. So you get a little clip, you get to view everything, but it's also really important that everyone is aware that the cameras are there and what their purpose is. You need to definitely have important and sometimes sensitive information for effective planning within that section 2. Nothing should be off the table, as hard as it is to talk about some things, whether it be, you know, personal hygiene and how some girls handle those things or of a sexual nature. You want to make sure that you are capturing those things so that everyone is aware. Section 5 is another important area that listing the people involved in the life of the person should be listed here. So they're very able to be reached pretty quickly if you have the plan in everybody's hands, whether it's for circle support members, but it's also really important that the care managers know if there was something that happened, again, all in times of COVID. Some people got very sick and didn't know who to reach to best support the person, or if there was a person that couldn't fend for themselves, or support the person, who would they call? And section 6 should have all your medical needs completed. So it's really important that if you review maybe the person's medication needs or the doctors and things that they may need, or the supports that they may need to live a healthy life. Next slide, please. So what type of housing is there? We have single family homes. We have single family homes with legal apartments attached. There's also discussions about accessory dwelling units, where those are like the granny pods, and they're a secondary housing unit located on a single family residential zone lot. There's condos, there's townhouses, there's co-ops, there's integrated community apartment living, there's revitalization downtown living. So there's an affordable complex that just went up last year in Riverhead, the Riverview project. There's Patchogue New Village, and there's Wyandanch that has also been created. Most of those revitalization projects come with specific funding that make them affordable. And then there's the intentional community models. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the OPWDD housing subsidy, it's a state-funded program, which makes them the payer of last resort too. So that's why we have the new looking outside, like Section 8 voucher or other funding sources. I think we're all getting an education in those things, and I do have links at the end of this presentation that will help you understand all of those things. And again, remember, this is a state-funded program, so it's 100% state dollars that fund this and not Medicaid dollars. It is based on HUD tenant-based rental assistance, which has not been changed since 2012, and that HUD FMR, or fair market rent, has increased every year since then. That's where we need the most advocacy at the moment, is the need for that to be really followed. I had a conversation with an OPWDD representative just recently who, adamantly stated that they follow HUD, and I said, you haven't followed the HUD FMR since 2012. And then I showed her an Excel spreadsheet that showed how it's 30% higher now than when they did that long ago. So they're really not following it fully. The premise is there, but it needs advocacy. It's also based on income, whether it's Social Security income or disability, employment wages, unemployment insurance, and any other income that you may be receiving. Deductions are definitely critical to reaching the maximum subsidy. So some of the ways that we look to do that is through Medicaid spend downs or buy-ins that people have, or insurance premiums that they incur, out-of-pocket medical expenses such as co-payments or over-the-counter medications, vitamins. I've had hearing aid batteries, vision, your glasses, dentistry. The latest one was a chiropractor. Somebody said, I go to the chiropractor and I'm not covered by it. So that is something that's an eligible deduction. Utilities that are not included in the rent. And renters, homeowners insurance, also a calculated field. Those are more the dollar for dollar that get you to the number that you need to reach that maximum. So all of these are really important. As a mom, I used to just sort of pay for things, and then at the end of the month, I would look at it and say, if they had the funding to sort of pay me back, my kids. But these were all things that I say to families all the time: what do you swipe your credit card for that you're not even thinking about? And then you find, Costco receipts for vitamins that you could be buying for your participant or your family member that add up to a lot of money by the end of the year that can help you get to that subsidy calculation help. Next slide, please. So before you purchase, when we talk about self-direction budgets or financial planning and preparation, before you purchase anything, before you sign a lease or move forward, make sure you've done your person-centered housing planning, right? So when we talk about all the slides that I just did previously, that is not a quick process by any means. It is definitely not a sprint, it's a marathon. So this takes a long time and a lot of planning to get to where you need to be. And all of you who are part of the call, that's great. It means you're ready and willing and able to start getting through that process. So you definitely need to include a financial planner, work with the professionals such as some of you are familiar with James Trailer from Upstate Special Needs Planning. I didn't list in here, but an attorney who works on special needs trusts, a housing navigator, or a seasoned broker that aligns with your FI and the paperwork submissions. Remember, sustainability is the key. So it's really important to do this planning and the financial work first, knowing where you are, knowing how you can build on the entitlements that and the outside of the box that you need to think of when you're doing the planning. Will you be looking at shared living? Will you be looking whether it's roommates or a live-in caregiver? This could also be a cost saving and support sharing. We are in a labor shortage. It's a way to make it affordable and sustainable. It all is in the person-centered planning. Not everybody wants to share with another person. And some people may just, want to live alone, but ultimately, if you look at the financing and how that works, it may not be a sustainable option for them. So then you would really do some really good person-centered planning, housing planning with another person and see if it's a good match. I liken it to, I don't know if any of you are Catholic, and when you did pre-Cana, you had to go through all of those steps to see if you were a good match to get married. So it's sort of likening to that, except it gets really deep. When we talk about self-direction, utilizing such services as a live-in caregiver or a paid neighbor, there's staffing support. Within the budget, you can use household related items and services, and that could be for cleaning or lawn maintenance. If you're living in a like my kids are in a complex that it's all part of the HOA fee, so we don't have to technically worry about the lawn maintenance or the snow shoveling and those kinds of things. But some people who are living in a house may need to have somebody come in and do those kinds of things for them. So you would look to utilize that line. It is $1,500 a year maximum that you can have if the budget supports it. And when you're in a shared living arrangement, sometimes that gives you the flexibility then to have maybe cleaning service and a lawn service if it's needed at $3,000. So, you know, then you can afford more. So sometimes those shared living arrangements work out to not only just for the supports, but for the ways that you can utilize the budget lines to make it a more equitable way to cover everything. We're also looking at ways to increase that independence. Maybe it's not covered by EMODs, some of those items that we talk about that increase independence. You first will have to get an EMOD denial, or if it's not covered by EMOD, you can go through that line too. We have coaching and education to assist in the financial planning, and that's up to $500 a year. So you can, parents can access that to secure some of the funding to help pay for the financial planning. And of course, we have the OTPS for utilities. And I also put in my links at the end, some of the cost saving measures that we have for, like PSE&G has a program that gives you a reduced rate for electricity. And then don't forget your transition stipends, which can help you with furniture and moving expenses. When for initial, it's a one-time. If you're coming from your family home, it's $3,000. If you're coming from a group home or congregate care setting, that number changes to $5,000. Look at your SSI, your SSDI, and SNAP. Also working and substantial gainful activity, and what that means when you're working, because you don't want to have your Social Security or disability stop. We also need to remember about childhood disability benefit. So when you pass away, 50% of your full retirement age collection is given to your child, which
Waiting for this meeting.
could affect your
Weeks.
could affect your Social Security. And then you have 75% when you are deceased, and those all need to be considered when you're planning and you're thinking of sustainability. Next slide, please. So how do we do next steps for creating more affordable options? We have to look for funding sources inside and outside of the OPWDD system. So are all the services and entitlements identified and utilized for people? All the things I just discussed. So make sure that you have all of that in place. How do we get to the non-certified? How do we get non-certified housing created? All right. So in Suffolk County, we are partnering with the county planner, and some of you, if you were friends on even like Facebook or social media or LinkedIn, we had a really wonderful program, a sewer infrastructure, a wastewater funding source that is for folks with disabilities that are partnered with a developer for those 25% set-asides. So we have a 25% set-aside that folks can access an affordable unit with the developer that's created these and use this funding to, yeah, I'm not making any sense, I'm sorry. So it's complicated. They apply for funding to get up to $50,000 per unit in set aside for a person with a disability in perpetuity. So this is a fabulous funding source outside of the OPWDD system. However, it is a partnership with folks who are using the ISS subsidy. So if you are accessing the subsidy and your developer has put this set aside, you are then eligible to sign up for one of those units as they're being created. If anybody has any builders and developers who, you know, have a big heart and are doing some development here on Long Island in Suffolk County, please send them my way. But there are other folks who are, so there's regional housing collaborative meetings that we have We used to be meeting every 6 months at the Long Island Builders Institute. Now we're online at the moment. We have the WAP funding, there's ISH funding, and that is OPWDD funding that comes through a grant that also is set asides for people with disabilities, but they sign up with a traditional agency, and that agency is the one who works with the local DDRO to figure out who would be able to go into those. And then we have HCR block grants. Home ownership by the person, their family, or a group of families. Some set up a corporation or an LLC. There's also private real estate investment trusts. And then there's the ability, hopefully, to attract outside social purpose investors. And there's efforts underway that those are being created now. So if anybody is interested and who has ownership in a home, I can put you together with some folks who are looking to do those type of programs. Either it's an LLC or the private REITs. Some of the LLCs, when we talk about the purposed investors, socially purposed investors, those are making it attractive for people to invest in these programs. And it's got a social content underway there too. So there are parents who are leaving the family home and they retire, and the person stays there and they become the landlord. That's another option that is on the table. And then, when do you leave the family home if you do that in a trust? And who do you leave it to? Or is it part of your circle and your life plan? When we talk about working with the professionals, what does your trust look like? What does your financial planner working with you say what's best for how that should be set up? So it's not just I'm going to buy this and this is how it goes. It's a carefully thought out process that I was personally had that issue happen to me. So I almost bought the house and put it in a trust and set myself up for a possible 30% tax liability problem within that trust, which then I was advised, the right way to handle that. So I've been down that road, and now that's why I try to help people avoid the pitfalls. Next slide, please. So here are a lot of different links, and this will be made available. We will email this to everybody who's on the call, who signed up for the call. So we have some helpful links and important information. This slide is just specifically to housing. So the New York Housing Resource Center can help you find a housing navigator. They can help you with any housing related issues or resources to help you learn. There's the educational series for housing is the second one. That was the one I talked about earlier and put in the chat box. There's a housing resource guide that can help you, and that's part of the training that we're doing. An educational series is in referencing to that book. Then there's the information about Section 8. There's the Long Island Fair Housing Advocacy for Housing Rights. There's the CDC Long Island, which is affordable rental opportunities that are occurring now. A lot of them are closed, but if you just have to be diligent and keep following them, you may run across an opportunity. Same with the Long Island Housing Partnership. They also offer rental opportunities. And then there's a report for the severity of the housing affordability crisis. That's the next sort of link. So next slide. So this is for technology and independence. So we have, I don't know if everybody's familiar with TRADE, and that is the technology related assistance for individuals with disabilities. And it's a assistive technology loaning to try adaptive equipment or try things. If our office is located in Montauk, but it's a great opportunity to maybe try some things that can help you figure out equipment that you may need on a trial basis. Then there's Simply Home, which is creating smart homes for independence and safety. Lots of different things that they have on there, whether it's monitoring for medication management or independence. They have some great opportunities there. There's the Danny did, which is epilepsy devices and technology resources. I worked with a family whose son had a seizure disorder, and we were able to get some technology for paid neighbors to know if something was happening, as well as the living caregiver. If there was an episode at night, they received alerts. So it had a lot of great technology devices that could be used in that as well. And then we have a new ADM for assistive technology and environmental modifications, as well as vehicle modifications from OPWDD. If some of you are brokers, you saw this at the last broker meeting. I just thought it would be good to have that on there in case anybody wants to learn more about EMODs. So next slide. And then these are for financial assistance or planning. So the first link there is James Traylor's group, Upstate Special Needs Planning. The next is New York ABLE. So if any of you are familiar with ABLE accounts, this is a great use for, and a list, this one has a list of the disability expenses to protect your benefits. And that includes housing. So I know some concerns occur when we talk about family having to assist a person financially to have their housing or have the subsidy, and it's not enough. So you would want to make sure that you have an ABLE account set up, because if you support the person and you write a check to the landlord, that is considered through Social Security a gift in kind and will reduce your Social Security benefits by 1/3 too. And I know it doesn't make sense because you're giving them money to make sure that they live, but a great way to work around that is to deposit that very same check into an ABLE account, and you're all protected, and then it's not a gift in kind and there's no reduction. We also need to look at HEAP, and there's the HEAP link so that you can apply for HEAP when it is open. The next one is for PSE&G, which is a discounted electric rate. They also have a good program called REAP, which can, they'll come in and do a, I guess, an assessment of your home and tell you if you have, they'll also give you light bulbs, the LED light bulbs. They come in and they go over your electric and try to figure out ways maybe to reduce your electric bill. And that is also available to folks with disabilities living in your family home as well. There's a weatherization assistance program called WAP. And that is, and I utilize this too, my kids, their condo unit definitely needed updating to the windows. So we were able to fill out the application and wait for our turn, and we were able to get some assistance for the cost of windows that were highly rated to also help protect us, protect them from drafts. And they came in and they even put new insulation and things like that in, and that is based on the person. So because we are the landlords for my kids, we had to pay a certain percentage, but it was very minimal, and they got brand new windows, and it's energy efficient, and it was a really great program that not a lot of people access. There is a wait list. It did take us 2 years, but it was well worth it. And I think that's the last slide.
Great, thanks so much for that, Trish. We had questions that were sent in. Did you want me to go through those with you and maybe you can address them? And then we do have the chat box that has some questions on it. So if you want, I can go through the questions that were sent. Is that okay? So first one was from Paul. He's navigating permanent housing for his participant at this time. He's seeking information on how to purchase a home for that participant. Are there any programs that assist with purchasing?
There, yes and no. It's all again in working. I can't answer that just as a blanket sort of answer because there's so many factors that get involved. And that's why you would look to partner with a financial advisor for something like that. Let me just turn myself back up. So it's all in the history and how you plan, but there are some programs out there, and if you can, you'll see them on CDC Long Island and the Long Island Housing Partnership and what that looks like. And again, you do that planning because you also want to make sure that you are not jeopardizing the other benefits to the person.
Yeah, Trish, if you could talk about the zombie home program,
Sure.
how that works.
Well, there is Suffolk County as well as Nassau County have land banks, and it's the houses that go into foreclosure and then become zombie homes get turned over to the county. And the county then has to work with people to establish some rapport with say like Long Island Housing Partnership, who will take those homes over and refurbish them, and however they decide and dedicate house to, that could be a way to get some housing as well. There's a project right now going on in Brentwood that was part of that type of zombie housing that Long Island, the Habitat for Humanity took over with some county funding to refurbish the house. And we're working on trying to find an eligible candidate outside of the norm for someone with a disability to be living there. So those are some of the ways that the zombie homes or properties, there's also acreage and cleanup that occurs with some of the properties. So we have people that are looking into, developers who are looking into those properties to do developments but they have the liability of some of the cleanup, but some of them are actually pre-done. So it's just they have to pay for the expense of the cleanup. Lots of different ways. And each county has a land bank, and there's a land bank association. We just put them in touch with the New York Housing Resource Center, so they are now a resource to all of us across the state.
Okay. Next question is from Sheila. She plans on moving soon. How does she go about getting an agency acquire her home for supported housing for her son and others with Asperger's syndrome? There are 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a large backyard.
I don't know if, again, that's out of my wheelhouse. I sort of just really create non-certified housing opportunities. I could tell you how to do a non-certified opportunity, and that would be for you to find people, whether it's through those private real estate groups, an LLC, and how you would, turn that into a home for your loved one. When you're handing it over to an agency, you don't have any, if you even donated it, you don't have the right, and they cannot promise that you'll stay in that home forever either. So
maybe Trish, just touch on, because this did come across the chat since you mentioned it, certified versus non-certified, just very briefly, if you could explain those two.
Sure. So certified homes are agency-based, and they are regulated. They have to follow specific criteria. They get audits and inspections unannounced. It goes through a process. So they go in and there's this whole process and checklist, and they come in and they make sure they have everything, and then it becomes a certified placement. And there's ongoing oversight from the agency and from OPWDD. The only way I can describe that is typical group home or typical IRA. You'll see I call it the fire extinguisher built into the wall. You see all of these things that lock cabinets and things that you would not normally see in your typical home. Non-certified is you're still held accountable. And most of you now, if you have housing, you've seen the QA checklist. It's on the ISS website as well. You can go under forms, under housing, and you can see the QA checklist, which will give you what our criteria is for someone living in non-certified housing to be eligible. It's really basic. It's there, but it gets checked once a year, or as things change, or if somebody moves. But that's the difference, is it's not so oversight. You can have whatever you want in your home. You don't have to have that fire extinguisher or the pull alarm right there at the door, or a lockbox on the door knob to get in and out.
Thanks, Trish. Okay, Annette is asking, I think the big question for all of us is concern about the possibility of a reduction in the ISS future housing allotment. Any advice? So,
Well, again, if we're talking about where you are within the template and what you're looking at when you're talking specifically to your person reaching the maximum housing subsidy, that's why it's really important to know what their real expenses are and how to advocate for what is really that being paid for, so that if you were gone and those things had to be incurred, that you could afford this whole situation. So that's when you loop in, if it went down, are you able to put money aside in an enable account based on the income that you have and that you can assist, or do you have money that you're taking from a trust? If there's a trust already set up, you can move money from a trust into an enable account and also pay for the housing as well. You can't pay for housing from a trust, but you can funnel it to enable account and then pay for the housing. So it's all kind of contingent on how you set up your plan and what that looks like. If you're talking about the actual funding from OPWDD and I don't think we can go down. We can only hopefully go up. I mean, we haven't gone up in 10 years, but if anything, we're at a stable number where we all know where we're working from, but we all hope that that will actually go up instead of down, if that's what your question was referring to.
okay. Teresa has a couple step questions, and I think we can all relate to this one is how can we help expedite the lease policy for self-directed individuals who wish to live independently that requires a lease be signed before approval of subsidy, which takes several months, leaving self-directed participants on the hook for several months' rent? And how do we help self-directed participants who wants to live independently get a larger rent subsidy from the current one that has not been adjusted for 9 years? So I think this is
Kind of a twofold, right?
yeah.
So I can't answer all of those questions because, like I said in the beginning, this is sort of a new process because of the amount of documents and the things you need to provide. And there's a lot of people, trying to do this all at the same time. And, we also have the recertification time period. And then we're all going to be going all through this again in November, right, when it's all due, and what a backlog it's going to create. And, I think the pre-approval process is the better option now that they've come up with, where before you sign that lease and before you make that jump. And that's why I tell people all the time, don't sign anything until you go through this and you do your pre-approval process, because then it will go much easier and faster. So you're not having to technically sign the lease anymore through the pre-approval process. I'm not sure I'm answering that question 100%, but just definitely don't sign until you have pre-approval.
Okay. Bill and Christine, 5 questions in a row. How do we get started? Is it sustainable? How does it work with live-in staff? Do we need an agency to oversee it? And if we have a house, can the special needs fund run the house?
I think I covered most of that within the presentation. It's all in the planning. Again, it's those questions I think are the ones that came in before I gave the presentation. So some of this is, again, everybody, please keep in mind, this is not a sprint. We're not running to beat something. This is really a marathon of learning and educating yourselves and trying to come up with a sustainable plan that works for your person.
Okay. Kristen, she's interested in finding out information regarding options of housing in New York for her twin sons, who will be 18 in a few months, and what can be used in their budget for living and housing expenses.
Okay, again, pretty much covered. Again, it's all in the planning. Attend the learning series. That is, if they're 18, attend that learning series. You're going to get 9 hours of intensive information. And then you're more educated also when you talk to the financial planners or the brokers or the people that are supporting you, so that you have a better understanding and know what to ask, right?
All right, and I will reiterate that. I think if you're interested, sign up and you will get the recorded sessions if you can't make them every Tuesday. So it's a really good housing informative session, nine weeks, I think, on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Joe is asking about, although many self-directed individuals desire to live away from their family home, many would also choose to remain there with the necessary supports even after their parents have passed on. OPW should provide planning and assistance to these families. Is this issue being addressed? So keeping the family home for the participant, I guess, after the family is no longer there.
Right. This is where I'm going to tell you that you need to lean on those care coordination organizations too, to better assist and advocate as a whole. There's only 7 CCOs. We need to bubble up to them where our concerns are. And again, you can do some planning on your own. Don't rely only on OPWDD. That's why you do the work you do with the planners, because you want to set yourself up so that you're not always reliant fully on everything that OPWDD has, that you've thought of outside sources. I didn't even mention like funding special needs trusts with insurance policies. You know, there's ways to think of it so that if, you know, heaven forbid, the bottom dropped out somewhere, that there's some funding available and that your person is covered and being assisted in that way. The younger, the better. Obviously, it costs a lot less when you're younger and you do this, but we don't like to talk about those things when we're younger, right? We sort of don't, this is like a taboo subject sometimes to a lot of people. And, you know, we definitely need to work on educating OPWDD as well on ways that they can help us. And we can't rely on them fully for everything either.
Okay. From Suzanne, what can parents do to contact rental buildings? That could include a few apartments for our daughter on a fixed income. And what can OPWDD, what can they do to pressure local municipalities to offer a few units in each building for quote unquote our people?
Right. And they don't really kind of force people, but they you need to advocate to builders and developers to want to do this, not only as a social way, but we're great tenants. Our folks are great tenants. We pay on time. We are a benefit to the community. We're bringing self-direction dollars down to even the local communities. So the builders and developers want to attract people, and the communities, you know, need the income coming in as well to keep it vibrant and going. Our kids or our adults go to classes, they eat in the community, their staff come, they're spending all of this money in downtown or wherever in the local communities they are. So it's a win-win for developers to want to do this. You have steady tenants, you don't have transient population, you have, you need to kind of get out there, join our regional housing collaboratives, come with us to talk to your plight per se to these people who are creating the housing. So, and again, that's on the regional, the New York Housing Resource Center website on how to get involved in that way. But the more people, the better. I always say, you know, I only knew what I knew before I started all this, and I knew nothing of the sort of this kind of thing, but the advocacy that's needed is so crucial. And if we want to see change, we have to think within OPWD and outside of OPWDD. So we need to engage those housing partners. We need to engage those planning teams. Suffolk County, I have to say, and I brag about Suffolk County mostly because they're the ones who are committed to helping people with disabilities. Steve Ballone, the county executive, is all about it, and he relays that to his team. So reach out to your local politicians. The more local, the better.
Okay, great. Christina Peter asked, will there be information and resources for housing opportunities in New York City?
There is a master housing navigator within New York City. It's Teresa Manuel. And again, you'll get her information as well on that New York Housing Resource Center website. And she is very familiar with what is occurring there. So feel free to look her up there.
Okay, great. The Maza family, how do we find housing for my 26-year-old son on the spectrum? We have been told that my wife and I have to find someone to live with him in the apartment, must find the apartment and pay for 75% of the apartment. Is that correct? Also, that it could take up to 10 years. Is that correct?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's all again in that, sorry, my daughter's texting me incessantly. It's all again in the planning and getting the right information from the right sources. Everything is out there, everybody, that I have learned from more so from reading things than listening to what everyone sort of tells me. I mean, I feel like sometimes it's the can of I heard and I heard and I heard, but find the true professionals that are out there, go to the places that are legitimately giving good resources, go to the trainings, get yourself educated. It's the only way that you will know how to move forward.
Definitely good advice. Where can we find affordable housing on Long Island or in Queens?
Again, CDC Long Island Housing Partnership, if you're looking for those kinds of things, if you have resources or want to learn about the resources that you may have that you're able to tap into, work with a financial planner and you will get what you, the information hopefully that will help you get there. Partner with great people who are like-minded as you. And just because you guys as family members, parents maybe get along, and you're thinking of shared living, you have to do the person-centered housing planning with the people that are going to live together. And then you guys can figure out if they make a good match before,
Right.
you know, you put yourselves on to your kids. I've done that now too for some people where the parents are all getting along, but the kids don't really like each other. You put them together.
Definitely a problem.
Right. But you also, again, it is important though to remember that you do have to align with the parents too, because you have to think the same and want to operate the same or come to compromises. So you need an agreement with the people, all the people living together.
Okay, great. Allison's comments or questions. If I wanted my child to live in a 2-family home that is purchased by the family, how could I set that up? Would I have to create a corporation, LLC, or living will? And can you give some examples of what ISS sees in some of the individuals who are in non-certified housing, receiving housing subsidies that are living in a home that is funded by the family?
There's 2 parts to that. I don't know if Alan wants to answer part of that, but
Well, Trish, I would just say for the second part, that yes, we do have groups of people that have come together to purchase property and to live in that property. Some very successfully, some not so successfully. It's not easy. Sometimes, you know, it comes together when you don't expect it, and sometimes when you expect it to come together, it doesn't. So, you know, it's a possibility, but it is somewhat difficult.
yeah. And you have to think of succession plans. You know, finding those DSPs that are looking to make this a long-term career. I happen to have stumbled across one personally who is sort of running my household for me. All the staff report to her, and then she bubbles things up to me. So on a personal level, I could tell you that's what model that worked for us. I can't say it'll last forever, but that is the intention. We're hoping. She's younger, so she's my kid's age. And she gets it and she understands it. So we are very happy to say that that is a model that works for us. You know, again, I say every day I'm planning for my demise. So if I really wasn't here and she was the one taking care of everything, what does that look like? You know, and educating her on what is the best way to handle it. There are organizations, I keep saying I need to start the company that's called What Happens When I'm Gone, right? Because it's a lot of work and it's the stuff that keeps us up at night. Some of the work I do is that's always at the forefront of my mind of, you know, how do we get to that point and what do we do and what do we work on? So we need to align ourselves with like-minded people.
Great, thank you. One more with the submitted questions from Jim. What are the requirements for insurance and what housing expenses are considered for calculation of rental reimbursements?
Jim, are you talking about homeowners insurance or renters insurance? I think there's a
Jim
difference
Carroll,
between the two.
are you on?
Yeah,
Okay,
because whether or not she has the house in a trust fund, that has insurance on it, but she doesn't have like renter's insurance. Is that required? And because I know that was part of, I think that was part of one of the calculations for what we would be reimbursed for.
That's an interesting question, and one I think we need to not so much take back just the FI, but maybe more of the OPWDD question, because if you look at the outline of what it says, it clearly says homeowners insurance and renters insurance within the guidelines can be used. I'm not sure if that's for home ownership or, you know, the trust model is a little different, probably a little bit more complicated. I'd have to get clarification for you on that.
okay. Thank you. All right, so going to the chat box, some people, thank you very much for answering some of the questions. Allison, you asked about the slide presentation. It will be sent in my follow-up email, and the recording will be eventually on our website of the entire meeting, so you will have a chance to come back and review. Joe is asking about something like a tiny home or a trailer or motor home or something like a van home conversion. For ISS involvement with a housing development, is it only for agency clients or will it also include self-direction clients? So those are two questions in a row from two different Josephs, sorry. So I'm not sure what Joseph M, something about a tiny home or trailer? Are you on, Joseph M? Melissa Terry? Oh, there you are, I see you. Joe? Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So tiny homes, it's a movement where people are taking like trailers and or even vans, you know, and converting it into a home where they could live out. Another example would be just a motorhome. You know, they've been around forever. You know,
I'm not
people-
sure about the permanency of those because they could be moved, but that's kind of the same
Well,
as an
well,
accessory dwelling.
if it's a motorhome, the general rule is you'd have a location where you'd be staying at.
Right.
That's, you know, here in at least Nassau County and Suffolk County, I haven't really seen it as prevalent. But if you go down south, you know, even probably upstate, there are trailer parks and stuff like that. So you're paying for the land.
Trailer
you
parks,
know.
yes. The trailer parks have been
So it's-
approved. I know of them and they have been. And one of the things we're working on in Nassau County, because they have a density issue and they don't have really open space to create some of these affordable complexes or new complexes, we've been talking to them about the accessory dwelling units and maybe what we could do to create those. And sort of one of the outside of the box thinking with them was, how do we then do like where the family's not getting clobbered then with taxes? So how can we fix that so that it's an affordable option? And if we create something as just for people with disabilities and that there's a clause within that so that that's all it's used for. And when it's not, then you're getting the taxes back again. But we've seen trailers.
Please reach out to me afterwards about this. Cause like one of the things that I've been doing is I've been really looking into this type of stuff just for the sole purpose of, you know, combating things like homelessness and finding affordable options. And on top of that, the harsh reality of it is that, you know, there's just so many people that are going to be homeless, you know, and already are, you know, and it's an easy fix, but it's
Going through all the bureaucratic stuff. I know.
yeah.
Okay.
I do understand, you know.
But also at the same time, just
And
even just learning, it's, you know, doing this stuff is learning life skills. You're learning survival skills. You're learning how to build things. and, doing your own maintenance on, cars and homes and stuff like that, and doing your own repairs. But even just learning something as simple as how to, change a water tank, stuff like that, set up a water tank in a car. Those are real useful skills,
Yep.
that are life skills, quite literally.
Again, put it in your life plan too.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, the other Joseph, sorry, for ISS involvement with housing development, is it only for agency clients or will it also include self-direction clients?
Yeah, I would answer that. ISS only has self-directed clients.
Right.
So we don't have agency, clients in that sense. My understanding is OPW may want to, if we did partner with a developer, they may want to have some say as to who goes into those apartments. My preference would be that we have the say and we would put people in who have that sustainability need so that we could put this sustainability model in place at that location. If OPW dictates who goes in there, we can't really put our model in place. So that remains to be seen how that works out.
Yeah, almost
And
a
a
little
lot of that-
unfair.
Yeah, a lot of that stems from if you're using integrated supportive housing funding for those units. So
Right.
that's why we'll try to always think outside of that if that's what we want to do, right?
Take away the control.
Yeah.
All right, Teresa is asking, how does subsidy dollar amount get changed via receipts? Is this done every year and subject to change?
Yes, if you're talking about how you're accessing the housing subsidy, you do have to prove those income and deductions yearly. Or anytime there's a $50 change within whether it's expenses or income.
Okay. And from Joe M again, can a person own a home or can they only rent? What about those who can't afford the cost of rent due to the cost of rent without risking losing their Medicaid? Example, they can only keep $2,000 or $2,400 in their bank account, yet rent costs $2,500 to $2,600 and requires 2 to 3 months rent upfront.
Right. So that's yes, you can own a home. You do need to, again, work with that financial planner to make sure that you are doing all of the right things, not to jeopardize your other entitlements and benefits. I'm not sure when you're talking about some of those income limits, it depends on what you have at the moment. So when we talk about SSD as opposed to SSI, it's got different criteria. So again, all really contingent upon each person, and that's kind of why it's good to be person-centered, because it's all based on that information.
Does owning if say we were owning, say someone were to own a home, so another question that I guess would be tied into that is, does it count as would it be considered a countable asset?
No, your home, your car is not.
Because that's one of those things where, depending upon who I've asked in the past, they'll say yes, they'll say no, and then housing is so often in financial markets used as leverage, so it's a whole nother question.
So when you talk about you're owning the house, then you have to be concerned with you're receiving the rental subsidy, or you have a roommate and you're the landlord because technically you own it. So now you have to be careful, and that's why you work with a financial planner to make sure that you are not jeopardizing yourself based on the income that you'll be receiving from a housing subsidy or from a roommate's housing subsidy or both. So there's
Right.
lots of different things. That's why it's really hard to answer some of these questions, because it's so individualized.
Okay. And then the question about EMODs, what that means, I think that was defined. Thank you for your help on that, Carolyn. Environmental modifications like a wheelchair, ramp, things like that. Okay, non-certified housing, I think we addressed. Certified housing. What about housing developers taking advantage of the tax credits and then abandoning or reselling the projects? This is a recurring issue in the housing issue, and it's how gentrification works, which creates a housing market that is unaffordable for lower income people like those on Medicaid. Okay.
So when we talk about those things, that is the very reason some of the language that has been written in, and again, through advocacy and through these experiences, when you access ISH funding, they can't just sell and walk away, that they will also want, their funding back, and it's done in perpetuity when you access ISH funding, which then Suffolk County created the very same program when we did the sewer wastewater infrastructure, is that it's put aside in perpetuity, even if it's a sale, and it's meant to be affordable and specifically for people with disabilities. Again, it's all in the language. You need to check if you are looking at a Long Island Housing Partnership project. Those are the things you need to ask for those projects. But when you are talking about the ones that are funded with Suffolk County sewer funding or ISH funding, you are protected because they've made it that way for that very reason.
Right. And then Joe, you're talking about illegal apartments. The OPW would not subsidize anything without legal C of O kind of apartments. So they're not going to be getting any subsidies for those. Okay. Valerie, need a digital step-by-step list how to navigate all housing.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I know, right? I guess whatever was sent in will be on the PowerPoint. I think that kind of gives you a starting point to organize your thoughts about housing. I hope that answers that question. Affordable housing, a zombie home. I think Alan addressed that with Trish earlier. I'm just going through the chat here. Okay. Can you talk more about intentional community models and how we can network to find them, from Jamie?
Okay, so there are just a few. And again, you have to be careful when you talk intentional community, what their intent is. That's a really loaded one. So there are models that, folks are more segregated from the community, not intentionally, pun on words there, but they're well-meaning folks who see it as a way to protect their family member, and they set out to intentionally create a community for safety reasons and not specifically for the person themselves to be integrated into the community. But there are also some intentional communities that it's intended to be inclusive and creative. So there's a difference, and you need to know what your thought process or what you're thinking for an intentional community. So there are some that are intended and to be inclusive and are operating here on Long Island. I'm not going to share their name just because I don't know if they would want me to do that without prior asking. But they have set asides within an integrated complex, and they are socializing and part of the community activities within the complex. So one has within, say, the clubhouse, and they're doing an art class or an art day. The entire community is involved, and it's intentionally set to be inclusive. Then there are others that are setting up intentional communities where it's farming and only people with disabilities are working on the farm, and the only other people they see are maybe staff people, so it's all in the matter of how the intentional community is run and what the intent of the community is. I'm not sure I gave the best answer for that one, but do your homework and know what you're signing up for, because I'll just give you one caveat that if you are non-integrated, you are jeopardizing all of your funding for self-direction, all of your community habilitation. It's not just a housing subsidy, it's your services as well. You have to be an integrated community. It's all embedded in our language. It's all in our waiver packet that gets submitted to CMS. So, you need to be careful that you're not aligning with something that has the wrong intention.
Okay, great. Thanks, Trish. Teresa's asking, what is pre-approval in this case? Can you please explain again ways to increase the housing subsidy?
It's deductions, things that you can, again, it's based on your income. So if you're, unfortunately, if you're in a childhood disability person receiving that type of funding, it's going to be hard pressed to get to the maximum subsidy because you probably are Medicaid as well. So you don't have a lot of out-of-pocket costs and expenses. So you have to really kind of look at where the costs are and where you are in deductions, and get creative and think of some of the things that you do actually pay for. Personally, myself, I for my daughter, I was like, these kids are set up, they don't really have anything out. But then when I really thought about all the things I swipe my credit card for, her psychiatrist is not covered by our insurance, and I've been paying out of pocket for that. And that's a real legitimate expense that will continue to incur long after I'm gone, because he's a great doctor and I don't want to give him up either. So, think of the things that you might need. Maybe it's medication dispensers, and you need that expense and you need one a year because, it breaks or whatever. So these are all things that you would look at as costs that are real and legitimate. I'm advocating for the use of the line other eligible deductions for many reasons. With OPWDD, I haven't had success. And again, it's all in how we present it. I have people that drive and pay car insurance and they can't, utilize the other eligible deductions for the car insurance payments that are really expensive,
Yeah.
especially in the area you live in. So, but these are real expenses for people. It's advocacy, people who have living caregivers and they out-of-pocket costs outside of the portion that's paid for through the budget. That's on the person who's, accessing that living caregiver. So there's lots of things that we could, we need to have a voice, unless we have enough people who are raising the voice or pounding the alarm, some of these things will really effectively never change, but we have to advocate.
Advocacy is big. Are there tax breaks for staff that live with the individual?
Yes, absolutely. If you are a living caregiver and you're also providing community rehabilitation, you are tax exempt. So you're basically, so if somebody's getting paid a nice wage as well, it's really like a little boost to income because you're federally exempt, and it's working with they should be working with their accountants to use that information. I can send that in with the PowerPoint. There's a great presentation by YouTube, and I can give you the information for the tax deduction and what that code number is so that the accountant can assist with that too.
Great, Trish, send that to me and I'll add that in my follow-up email.
Yep. Living caregiver is a great option for a lot of people. We need to promote it more. It is something that, again, the younger folks, they can't afford to live here either, right? So it's providing a great benefit to people. We have to look at it as a viable solution for a lot of folks, especially when I hear that, he needs 24/7 or they need 24/7. It's a companionship service. They're not indentured servants. They're not there 7 days a week. You do have to give them 2 days off, so 2 nights, and then you would look at your other ways to support those 2 nights, whether it's technology, whether they come visit, they go see a family member. If you're doing overnight support, CDPAP services, there's just a lot of options that you, again, all in the person-centered planning and how you look at it. But it is a great service. It's underutilized. It's not promoted as a really good option. We need to fund it properly too.
Okay. We are getting very tight to the end of our session here, and I have a bunch of more questions. I'm trying to, I think we might be able to get through them if we're quick. Let's see.
I can always answer them by email if I can too.
Yeah, we should be able to do this. So,
I'm
all
just
right,
gonna make
somebody wants to know if they can connect with you, Trish. So with your permission, I can give the contact information to them.
Sure.
Is that okay? All right, so
Yep.
I will send that to you, the person who asked for that. So the steps would be to complete the pre-approval first before getting a signed lease. Then the budget has to be changed and it takes months. Oh, you're singing our song here. So we'd have to pay the rent and there's not a way to get that back. And how would we pay the rent for our child and not have that be counted as income for SSI? They have no assets, then how to cover a lease for several months before budget approval. Yeah.
Able accounts, able account.
Yeah, the
Sorry, guys.
housing has definitely created problems. So you're saying, Trish, everybody should open an ABLE account that can fund this prior to them getting everything they need?
You should just be aligned with that. Again, I can't say it enough. Person-centered planning, financial planning, don't sign anything. You know, the old days, we used to also, have to submit for budget approval for housing even before it, and then you went shopping. So, you kind of have to think along those same lines.
Right.
You wait for the approval and then you go shopping.
Okay.
I'm working with a few people right now who are, want to go look, and I'm like, well, we have to get through the pre-approval.
Mhm.
I know you're excited. I know you want and you're ready, but you could be putting yourself on the hook for quite a few months of rent. And I have to, in good conscience, tell you that,
Right.
I can't just tell you, no, don't worry about it, go sign,
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Okay, what is the function of a housing navigator? In two easy sentences.
Pretty much everything I just went over.
Yeah.
If you're working with a broker and they know all this, that's great. That you don't need a housing navigator.
Yeah.
But, we come with specific training and all of this learning series. They've, through their master housing navigator, have also gone for Cornell training on benefits planning. So there's a lot of different things that go into this that your everyday average broker maybe doesn't know, or is the phone can again, I've heard this, and yet they don't have the reality of where that information comes from. So we get the specialized training to find where those things are and to give it to you.
And everybody should know there's one housing navigator right now that's assigned for each region, correct, Trish, in New York State?
Yeah, we are the master housing navigators for each region. So, funny story is I went for the training. I became a housing navigator, wanted to learn more, and then this opportunity came for the grant, and I sort of threw my name in the hat, and I was never expecting to be chosen, but I was, and here I am today, learning all about sewers and.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, can a broker, care manager, and ISS help a participant attain housing through OPWDD without working with a financial planner?
Yeah, I would say maybe. But a financial planner is going to cover things that the other people that you mentioned do not know enough about to advise. So if it's a financial matter, you would need some sort of financial advisor.
Right, especially all of you probably have a retirement plan. And I'm going to tell you, they're all different. Then everybody on this call has a different retirement plan. And this should be part of your retirement thinking.
Right.
So, it's the same thing. You have to plan.
Okay, do we need to use a trust to purchase a property to rent to our participant?
No,
So parent can own property and rent it to as long as it is an
as long
official
as they're not living in it with them.
apartment.
Yes. Well, to a certain extent, we have people that are parents with a participant renting within the community, but the person is the leaseholder. They are the person who is in charge of the lease.
Okay.
It's not the family home, but it's, say, a Fairfield rental.
How would we go about finding a knowledgeable financial planner to guide us?
The one that I know of that knows every part of, self-direction, entitlements specifically, is James Traylor. I'm not going to tell you there's nobody else. I know there's his counterpart, and there is one in New Jersey who knows all of New Jersey. I'm sure there are others out there. I just personally haven't run across them.
Okay. And then again, another request to reach out to you. If I have permission to do that, I'll give them your contact information.
Okay, I think when we send the final slides, I'll put my email on.
Okay, Great.
Um,
all right. So Christine, that's for you, and Val, I think also. Let's see. I mean, Joseph, I'm reading yours. They're not questions, they're statements. So I'm going to move past them. So pre-approval is the first step. Who can help with this?
Your broker submits the paperwork for the pre-approval process. So then it's aligning with the FI. I have somebody moving from a certified setting. And we've involved the certified agency, we've involved the FI, we've involved OPWDD so that everybody is aware. The more communication and time you give to this planning and this, talking through everything, the better off you are. But ultimately, your broker is submitting your plan for pre-approval to the FI. So make sure that, they have done their job correctly.
Okay, and question I asked you earlier, does the SD budget pay for the housing navigator? If you want to address that.
It can just it's $500 in coaching and education that can be utilized to pay for some of that. So, we're in, if your budget happens to be in the last month, you can use 500 now. And then if it restarts again next month, you can use the 500. So if you want to plan that strategy too, go right ahead.
And Joseph, the name that Trish was saying is James Traylor. It's Traylor. You asked his last name.
And his link is in the handout that'll be shared.
And I got to the bottom of the chat boxes and with some really nice thank yous to Alan and Trish and myself. So we appreciate your appreciation of this. We hope that this was informative. Thank you everyone for attending tonight's presentation on this really important topic of housing. We hope it helped you, and we will follow up with an email with the PowerPoint presentation, the YouTube video and tax deduction, and Trish's contact information if you choose to get in touch with her. The recording will be on the website as soon as we can. I can't get it up there tomorrow, but hopefully by next week, we'll let you know where it is. And our next quarter parent council will be in December. Instead of the last Tuesday because of the holidays, we'll do it the second Tuesday, December 14th. And as usual, I'll send out the announcement with the invitations of what topic we're heading with. And you can let me know if you want to join us on that nice holiday time to finish the year out. So with that, and 6 minutes passed, I thank you all, and we will sign off. And everybody,
Thank you, everybody.
stay out there, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep in touch. Okay, Trish, thank you so much. Alan, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank
Have
you.
a great evening,
much.
everybody.
All right.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody.